Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Authentic Podcast with Justin Doulard. And thank you for tuning in to another episode. And now, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Another genuine conversation with a unique individual. It's time!
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Got a good one here. I got Mr. Tim Jenkins, the quarterback whisperer of Colorado, the nickname. So, Tim, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, I'm excited, man. It'll be fun. It'll be a blast.
Where do we start? So, talking about going to a D1 school. We can start there, go off the fly. So, well, let's start with this.
Yeah.
I know what you do.
Yep.
Give me a brief synopsis of the people listening, what you do. Give me.
What do you want nowadays, or do you want like 3 years ago when I was grinding it out of the field?
Let's start at Fort Lewis.
Yeah. Okay. So, I went to a Division II school, a tiny little school. You only know because your brother went there, right?
Right.
No one really knows Fort Lewis, Durango, Colorado, and played quarterback there for 4 years, and then went on and had a cup of coffee in the NFL and got fired from there, and then went on to the CFL and got fired again, and then started training quarterbacks. So. Now I run a company, Jenkins Elite. I'm super creative with the name, obviously.
The CEO of Jenkins Elite,
yeah.
man.
But we, it started out with a kid at a park, and started working with him, and he was back up on his freshman team. And the next year, he became the starter on his JV team. And as dumb as that sounds to your listeners, because they don't care about Bennett High School and Colorado and their freshman quarterback, to me it was like, seeing a kid work and achieve, like, even though it was a small goal, like his, a dream, not a dream, but like a goal he had, it was like crack. I was good to go. So started training kiddos, and, fast forward a couple, to 2016, we probably had 50 or so guys I was training at that point. Hired our first guy, and then from there it's kind of gotten crazy. So now we have, 20 on staff. We just launched a Houston location. We have 2 locations in Colorado, and so, a couple years ago, all I did was train guys, and then I would come home at night and email and, do all the sales aspect of it, right? And then now it's gotten to the point where, I still do a bunch of the training sessions, but, we kind of have to focus on actually running the business because, there's a lot of people who it's their actual job, right? It's not, one of my coaches, Justin Holland, he's our quarterback director in Colorado, and he always jokes, right? Anytime he's at a dinner party, people say, "What do you do?" And he says, "I'm a quarterback coach." They go, "Yeah, cool. Like, what else?" He's like, "No, that's my job." So, there's a lot of pressure and responsibility that comes with that to make sure that everyone is, that you're putting certain things first that maybe aren't the most fun, but you have to get done to make sure everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how growth has come to you. I mean, I listened to the podcast we talked about with you, the fitness one you did several months ago.
Yep.
Your first guy you started, you said you probably took a loss on that because you traveled and paid and you made like $25 or something.
I drove to Bennett, Colorado, which if you're listening is like, basically Kansas. I drove to Bennett, Colorado. I charged $25. I filled up my gas tank and I ate good time. So I probably lost like $6.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and that's stuff you learn. When I first started, it was, I think if you were to grade me out when I first started, I was probably like a C- as a coach. I was probably an A when it came to caring, and I was an F- as a business
on the business
person.
side.
Yeah. And then I think, I was fortunate. I got around some good mentors, and then, when you can devote your time to studying, the craft, even though I had played at a pretty high level, you just do stuff that you think everyone does what you do. Right? You think everyone, my game was I was super average athletically. I wasn't a good thrower, but I would watch 12 hours of film, right? Like that was my edge was, if someone's gonna watch 11 hours of film, when I was with the Rams, I had a rookie tryout, right?
Yep.
And this will give you a glimpse into how hyper competitive and insane I am. I was in the room. You room with the guy you're competing with. I was with Mitchell Gale. He's from Abilene Christian, and he was another quarterback working out for the 4th spot essentially. And you go back to the hotel, you study your playbook, right? It's mini camp. You have 3 days, and you got to learn a binder this thick.
Yep.
If he studied till 11 o'clock, I was gonna study till 11:05, just because I needed that in my head to like think that you
that
work a little
edge.
bit harder. So yeah, I think that was that's some of the stuff that you're thankful for, when you look back at your career and kind of how it helped you build to then who you are today.
So when you started out, you said you made like $25.
Yep.
You drove to
Yep.
the Kansas equivalent of Colorado. Did you know it was going to grow into this,
No.
or it just kind of it's grown as it?
Dude,
as
I
it's come,
literally so when I first started, I really thought, not after the first lesson. When I was doing the first few lessons, it was like hybrid between this is really fun. I still didn't know if I wanted to go play in the CFL or like pursue that. And then also I had a fiance and we had an apartment and you have to pay rent.
Sure.
Right. You can't live for free. So, that it wasn't, anything other than I think like, wow, this is really fun. And this seems like the kids are getting better. I might as well do this, right? Then go sell insurance. I always joke, right? That's what I was probably going to do because I think that's what competitive people do. They get into sales.
You see that a lot with
Yep.
former athletes. So.
Yeah. So I no. A couple, I would say 3 months into it, I thought this could be a really cool job for me. Like I always saw it as something that, I could do for a living. Like I could, I could raise a family and we could pay our bills and, I saw that. I did not see that we would have a bunch of full-time employees and like and that we could scale to different cities and
be
markets.
a full-blown entity.
I didn't
and
see
company.
that.
Be
No.
the CEO.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and it's it just goes to show you that the path you're on isn't necessarily where you're gonna be, right? It goes to show you that my whole life I worked to be a quarterback in the NFL. That's all I ever thought about, and it turns out like I'm actually way better at this than I ever was at that. But everything I think you do for your first goal probably shapes you into
Preps you into this. Yeah.
Who you're gonna be.
Yeah. You thought you were going to go the NFL and didn't
Yeah.
work out, and then now you're in something that you truly love and
Yeah.
it's growing, it's flourishing. So
Yeah.
so I guess let's see. You started out training people on the field, throwing footballs, showing people how to do it, and now you're more half and half businessman.
Yeah.
How does that work? How often are you on the field nowadays? Because you're growing so much. I'm sure you miss being out there every single day, but like you said,
that's the most fun.
Yeah.
Training kids is the most fun, man. And I tell you what, like being around 15 to 18-year-olds, like some people hate it. I think it's hilarious. The dudes are hilarious. They'll teach you about TikTok. I got no idea about TikTok. I know about TikTok. They teach you about, I know way too much about some of our 17-year-olds' love life. Like it's just not good, the stuff that I, but they're like hilarious. It's so much fun to be around. So yeah, I wish I could do like what I used to. I wish I could dedicate to just the training side of it. It's just not a reality, and it's not what.
Well, it's a good problem.
Yeah, it's just not responsible to the guys that have, I find a deep like responsibility in the fact that people like have chose to come and work with our company. I think a lot of times, I don't want to say a lot of times, and I don't want to generalize, but there are certain business guys that I've been around that are like their employees like stress them out, or they don't like them, or it's like these guys don't work as hard as I do. Like, I don't think people realize like if someone chooses to work at your company and that's like, what they're counting on supporting their family with.
It's a big investment.
It's a huge responsibility that you have to them to treat them right and like do all this stuff. And I think that's why like we've had a lot of guys that have been here from the beginning. I think a lot of it is because, we're all in this together. I by no means think that like this ain't me. This is all of us. And granted, right, when you play a team sport growing up, it's easy to figure that out. You know, as much as I loved being at Fort Lewis when I throw for a couple 100 yards, like, dude, the receivers are the ones catching and running way far, and these guys are the ones blocking 300-pound people. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Like, it takes everybody. So I think, you know, I don't know. I think that's part of, you know, why we've had the success. But, yeah, you know, my favorite part is the training. Like you mentioned, it's not, you know, it's not where it's at. Right now, I would tell you I spend 80% of my time on business or building curriculum. You know, building how we're going to train or this, and this, or looking at, you know, reviewing lessons and stuff like that. And the other 20% is actually getting out on the field.
In the field, yeah.
Which is fun. Which is the most fun.
How do you even – so you started here and you got 2 locations in Colorado. Then you launch in Houston.
Yep.
I'm sure –
Why?
How?
Yeah.
How do you –
Why?
How do you do it?
That's what we get asked a lot is like, why the hell did you pick Houston? So, like, if you're cool, I can jump into the business side. We're huge in SEO, search engine optimization.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We think it's
I think you have to be nowadays.
Yeah, we think it's the primary way that our consumers find. If you have a 9-year-old that wants to play quarterback, what do? You search Google.
Sure.
So for us, we've, you know, created landing pages across the country with certain keywords to kind of find out where people are searching, and just so happened that Houston was the biggest place for Jenkins Elite getting searched. Now, was that because PJ Walker was the quarterback for the Roughnecks in the XFL? Probably.
One of your bigger clients, right?
Traffic, and you can generate, you know, leads and then sales from there, and so from the business perspective, you know, that's where it made sense. We have a couple other markets that we'll be announcing at the end of the year that I'm really excited about, that we're finalizing, and it's like, you know, days away. But yeah, man, Houston was kind of just a no-brainer from that perspective. And then, of course, you know, anytime you get down the South, man, it's football country.
Yep.
And that's, you know, I'm already seeing it. I think with our Houston location, I think one of our first sales was from some guy in like Dallas, right? 6 hours away, but they're ready to go. And I think that's what makes that awesome, right? They're willing to drive. You know, we have people like that too. I shouldn't say that because we have people that drive from Aspen or come in from Nebraska, but you know, it took years to get that.
Yeah.
So
most of your clients, I assume, are from around the area, but then you got guys like PJ Walker who come here just to train with you.
Yeah. So we have, you know, our academy, right? Our guys that are training year round, all area guys. We have a couple guys from Wyoming. We have a couple guys from Nebraska, right? That'll drive in because, you know, that's the value they put on it. And we love them and they do great. And we actually have a kid at Kearney Catholic in Nebraska, a podunk town, small town, and he committed to the University of Nebraska. He's like a big-time kid, 6'5", 220, rip the ball. He'll, you know, I think he'll be a first-round pick, but you know, what do I know? But, yeah, and then we have guys that we get through NFL draft prep. So agents contract us to get guys ready for pro day and combine, right? You know, get them on the whiteboard, grill them like a GM's gonna. So, yeah, so we had PJ through the NFL draft prep. Now he comes back every offseason. We had a really cool training session this summer with PJ, and Emmanuel Sanders was out there running routes, and Benny Fowler. And
wow.
I mean, those dudes are different cats, man.
Yeah, that's a whole new level.
They're damn good. So
PJ's on the Panthers, right?
PJ's with the Panthers, yep. So he's their number 2. And then, you know, we get a bunch of college kiddos from across, you know. We actually, I'll tell you what's crazy. I'll tell you a crazy story. We have college kiddos come in for spring break training. And we actually had a college group in March, right? When
it's hot.
So the beginning, Monday we start training. No one said anything about no one knows COVID.
Yep.
Tuesday, we start learning about COVID. Wednesday, the basketball gets shut down officially.
Yeah,
that's when these kids are out here. Thursday morning, they all start getting texts from their college presidents, don't come back to school, you're going remote. Like, we were in like the absolute thick of it. So they all fly out Friday. This just goes to show you the chaos that you never anticipate as a business owner. But then Friday, you know, normally our office staff has Friday, Saturday off, and then it's kind of Sunday through Thursday is kind of our work week. But Friday, we're like all hands on deck. We got to figure out, because the next group of college kids are supposed to come in.
Oh, okay.
We're like, what can we do? And then you remember what it was like at the beginning of COVID when people were like, the National Guard's going to be on the street. They're not going to let you fly anywhere, all this stuff. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to end up, Airbnb is going to cancel the home. So I'm going to end up having 6 college dudes in my basement.
Right. Nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. Can't go home. So we had to end up canceling the next 2 weeks. You know, when you look back at it, you think like we probably could have done it. But at the time it was like,
oh yeah,
it was insane. So it was looking back, it was just funny to be in the midst of, we would have still been in the midst of it as a company, but to see like the college kids go from on a Monday, nothing's going on. They're all talking about spring ball starts when they get back, blah, 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 blah. To Thursday, classes are canceled. Don't freaking come back. It was wild.
Yeah, it's every conversation has COVID in it nowadays, but something similar happened to me, not with college kids, but I was planning to go see Colton out in Vegas, right? In probably that same week you're talking about. Yeah. We had a concert and we had some fights we were going to go watch. And I figured they were going to get canceled, but Monday it was like, be cautious. Tuesday it was like, travel not advised. Wednesday it was like, is your flight going to go through? And I was like, should I go? Anyways, I went, but I was fine. We were fine. We didn't do a whole lot, laid low. But on the way back, I'm flying out and I get back to my destination and people were loading the planes to go to Vegas. But all the properties just announced they're closing the hotels. And I'm thinking, are people going to have anywhere to go? They're getting on the plane. I just got off. It's a one-way with Allegiant to go to Vegas.
Oh my God.
We stayed at Colton's place 2 nights. We did one night on the Strip just to get out. Yep. We stayed on a Sunday night. Tuesday night they were closed. And there was a cargo full of people, a plane headed out. And I was like, I don't know if they've told them or if they're honoring the rooms or what. I felt really bad. So,
it was so chaotic.
Yeah.
Like no one knew what the heck was going on.
Yeah.
It was like, and then like, so I don't want to laugh about it and then like a week later, do you remember getting all the emails from companies?
Oh yeah.
That was insane too.
The CEOs.
So we start getting all these emails and we're like, do we need to send an email out? So we sent an email out.
Did you?
Okay,
yeah.
man, here's what we're going to change.
That's really funny you brought that up because like I would get them from companies I hadn't shopped at in years. Like Banana Republic was like, your shopping is safe with us.
Yeah,
I'm like
Reebok.
What?
They're like, hey man, you can still buy our sneakers.
Yeah.
Like, who wasn't buying online anyways?
Right. Every place I've ever shopped at sent an email saying safety first. And I was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, and then what was crazy was then we had to start really paying attention to the guidelines. Yep. Because then all of a sudden it was like, and this is something that like, again, not political aside, right? This is something that I didn't even know was like on the table as a business owner. Here's what I was always prepared for. I was always prepared for a recession, right? You probably remember we went to college in the midst of it. Mm-hmm. Not went to it. We were like juniors or seniors at the midst of it. No. We were going to college.
We experienced it.
2008, 2009, we were going to college.
Yep.
I remember because my dad lost his job as I'm going to school, right? So you're thinking to yourself, man, like, am I hurting our, the family, yada, yada. So I've always been ready for a recession, right? Hey, recession hits. We're going to get an influx of calls. We got to figure out how to do right by people, keep the kiddos in the program, and then when they get back on their feet, we get back to normal. I was always ready for something like that. What I was never ready for, and there's no way any business owner was because it never happened, for the government to come in and say, you can't do your job.
Yep.
But, by and large at the beginning, it looked like the right call. I mean, it was scary. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, man, it was it was something that just I don't think anybody was ready for.
Yeah.
So we started paying attention to the guidelines, and then then all of a sudden we had to go online for a month, and thank God a lot of people stuck with us, and then you get out of it and you get back on the field, and now I don't want to say we're normal by no means, right? But we're at a point to where our training feels normal, so these kiddos at least have something back in their life where it's like this is normal.
Yeah.
They go to 2 days of virtual school or whatever the heck. It's
right.
I couldn't imagine being 12 or 14 right now. And
yeah, my niece, she's 5.
Yep.
So it's her first experience with school.
Oh yeah.
And she's doing it online. And because I think back in Oklahoma, they had the option. It was like, you can go online or virtual. And they were like, well, let's try the virtual thing just for safety measures. It was like day 2. And they're like, she's not in her element. She doesn't understand. She's at home, and kids just don't know. It's weird.
Dude, it took me like 2 months to get used to Google Calls.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm like old and can't figure out how to use like the webcam and stuff.
Sure.
It's just like weird.
Well, did you take an online class in college?
Yeah.
Like, most of the time you catch up on your work and do it all, and then you sleep during the class, or, you do it at your own pace. And kids are just not, it's hard for them to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it
was hard for me to do it when I was 20.
Right. I'm sure it's even harder for the teachers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's adding so much. My mother-in-law is a like second grade. She's a school teacher. Now she's a reading specialist. But she's talking about her teammates and
so tough.
How hard it is. And we already take them for granted.
Yep.
Right. And then it's like, oh yeah, here, learn how to deliver this content online just in case. And then also be ready to go back in class. I just, I don't know, man. I think it's so crazy. It's so hard. And, the kiddos too, you just feel for, we deal with a lot of high schooler. We deal with youth too, but we deal with a lot of high schoolers, and you feel for the kids where it's like, prom was their junior prom was canceled. Their senior homecoming's probably going to be canceled. And then like, do they do senior prom? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, we all look back and it's like prom was dumb. I agree. I thought it was stupid. I was dumb when I was 17. But when you're 17,
you really want it.
It's not dumb.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like real rich of us to say like things are stupid. Well, yeah, but you also went through them. Like graduate.
It's a stupid thing you wanted to do. I got a big argument
about graduation the other day. Someone was like, "Graduation's stupid." Anyways, it's like, dude, easy for you to say.
Yeah, you got to do it.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
At the time, graduation was everything. 3 years later, you're like, it's not that cool, but you still need to experience it.
Yep. And you got to do it. My hardest thing going through this was seeing us willingly take stuff from these kiddos
that we already got to do.
We got to do, and then being on our high horse about how they shouldn't care about it. That was my frustration. No matter where you come down on it or politics or whatever, that was my frustration looking at it. It's like I really struggle when someone has something and then tells someone else you don't need it.
Yeah, because the kids are never going to get it back.
Yeah. You're never 17 again.
Yeah, Colton was telling me, so I used to have Twitter. I don't have it anymore, but he was telling me you're pretty active on there and pretty vocal about the kids playing football here.
Well, they pushed football this spring at first.
What do you think about that?
Well, I was way against it. I was a 1-year starter. I was
in high school.
In high school. So you're talking about if you push the spring, I'd never get offered. I never go to Fort Lewis. I never get a chance to go to the NFL, CFL. I probably don't start this company.
Have a huge impact on your life.
I don't know what my life is like.
Yeah.
Right? Again, you like to think the best of yourself. I probably still compete, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But who knows, right?
If you didn't get that opportunity, we'll never know.
Especially if you compound my life, right? Like we talked about, the recession hits. Your parents go through some hard stuff. Do you, and then all of a sudden, if you didn't have football, who are you, right? I don't know who I would be at that point.
Yeah, that's a lot of kids' outlets.
Yeah. So I was very vocal about it. And it wasn't about COVID or the dangers, because I'm a quarterback coach and business guy. I don't know virus. I don't know viruses. I'm not going to act like I do. I can look at the data and I can make my own assessment, but I'm not. Dude, I have no idea about pandemics.
I just want to say I love that, because I have so many friends, family, peers, anyone on my Facebook, I'm like, you realize everyone here talking about it, minus 5% of the people are not subject matter experts. No. Stop acting like it.
Yeah, they all act like it. The only thing I talked about was that this is going to negatively impact the kids' recruiting.
Yeah, you're just all about the kids.
Yep. And so, anyways, man, I battled. Governor Polis tweeted at me.
Really?
Well, I don't want to pat my own back, but I'm going to.
No, go ahead. Because
what happened was they moved it to the spring. Okay, everyone's pretty vocal about it being a bad thing, and then everyone kind of adjusted to the idea of spring.
Okay.
Well, other states start bringing it back, right? Governor Polis at a press conference says, "Man, we'd love to look at bringing high school football back."
So he went back on his word?
Essentially, right? But, I think it's being open and awesome, right? If we can do it for the kids, let's do it. Well, then CHSA got blindsided by this, who's our governing body. And then CHSA votes the night the governor says that. They say, oh, wow, we're going to take a look at it. They vote, and they vote it down. They say, don't change. Then comes the, finger pointing behind the scenes, where I'll get a text from someone who knows the governor's office and says, this is what we gave them, and then CHSA's telling me, no, this isn't, and no one will go on the record.
Yeah.
And so I tweet out one night because I'm just pissed at this point. And I say, to be honest, the lack of transparency makes both Chassa and the governor look bad. Neither deserve to be reelected in their positions again, right? Which if you're in politics or Chassa or whatever, your probably only thought process is I want to get back to that, right? Or I shouldn't say it's your only thought process, but it's part of the goals. Anyways, 11:30 at night one night, Governor Polis tweets at me and says, the transparency thing, he responds and he says, the guidelines we gave them were 50 per team, per sideline. Well, if that's true, we could play. Previously, it was 25 for the whole team, for the whole game.
So they just want to cut the roster down.
They were going to say you could only have 12 on a sideline. You can't play football.
No.
Governor Polis tweets out from his personal account, so he can't say it was an intern, right? And says, hey, no, 50 per sideline. Well, then Chassa, what I heard, right, again, this is all hearsay, but Chassa was like, we didn't know that.
Chassa's like the
governing body, Colorado High School Athletic Association.
Okay.
So then now with the 50 being out in public, it started a wildfire.
And he's replying to you?
He had replied to me. Yeah, it started a wildfire. It was insanity. It was also part of why, I have my own political opinions, and I'm never going to push them on someone else, because if there's one thing I learned about being on Twitter and something that became political, right, being COVID,
right,
both sides have accounts with no name or profile picture that are terrible, terrible people hiding behind like
the Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
You see
right?
that?
Like the burner account.
Yes, the burners.
Both sides have it. I don't want to hear about, our side doesn't have it. Both sides have it. They're in my mentions. It was terrible. With that being said, Chassa goes back, revisits. Now we get to a point where actually this last Friday, was the first week of high school football in Colorado. So the kids are playing the fall.
It's back.
It's
Just a
back.
condensed season.
The condensed season, they're playing 6 or 7 games. They're
Kind of
play
like the Big Ten and the Pac-12.
Yeah,
okay.
They're playing.
Nice. I didn't know that.
I tell all the kids, I say, you can write me your thank you note whenever you want. But no, man, and that's part of where I think the idea that like politics is like, this like crazy thing where we have to pick sides. Like Governor Polis, he made a great decision to bring it back. I wish it wouldn't have taken so long.
Yeah.
But like, you gotta give credit where credit is due.
Well,
And
I like how
he did
you
a great
just
job.
said, you're like, how did COVID get so political? And you're like, I don't really care. You're like, I'm just looking out for my kids. What's best
I
for
literally
them?
just wanted them to play.
Yeah.
And then people like would respond and be like, you're just trying to kill kids for profit. And it's like, okay, this is what I started saying on Twitter a bunch too. Like there were a bunch of like me dunking on dumb people and a lot of people like that. And it was fun. I like was getting some good like energy out from being sheltered in place. But, what I was super transparent about was like, people were like, oh, I get it. It hurts your business. Dude, it helps my business. When they don't play, they train. I make money off training. I'm not going to hide I'm not going to act like I'm like this charity case. We charge for our service. With that being said, I'm still arguing to bring football back.
Right.
Because that's what our kids need.
I feel like you would be an advocate to play football no matter if you were selling insurance.
I'd rather lose. I will never put $1 over my soul. And the right thing was for the kids to play. So I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, you guys got it right, and I'll just cash in until the spring.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. So, it was insane, though, to see, like, how crazy it's gotten. And, the fundamental beef I had with the whole thing was, they didn't push all sports to the spring. They pushed football. They were playing softball. They were playing
Basketball.
golf. They were playing cross country. They were going to play basketball in January. It's like, if it's not safe, I'm good with that. If that's what they believe and they want to push every sport to the spring, I can get the logic. When you just push one because it's scary, because people tackle.
What about the ridiculousness of the NFL playing everything is normal?
Yeah.
Minus limited fans.
Yep.
But they're not letting them do the jersey swaps. How does that make any sense?
This is where I don't understand, because there are really smart people I'm around. People that I'm talking like are way smarter than me. Guys that can go do surgeries and this stuff that I could never be qualified for, that like are banging the table for these policies that I don't think are logical. Like, if it's not safe to swap a jersey, how
not
is it
safe to
safe to dap somebody up?
Right.
Like after the game, then okay, you should just go to the locker room after the game. But no, we're gonna dap each other up, but we can't then swap the jersey.
Yeah, there's
like,
this deal
what?
like Stephen Gilmore from the Patriots, a cornerback.
Yeah.
He tested positive, and then
Yep.
they were like, he was seen shaking Patrick Mahomes' hand after the game.
Yep.
It's like, what's the difference in that? It's ridiculous.
Hey, Mahomes, here's my jersey.
We
The dude's gonna frame it anyways. Not like he's gonna lick it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna lick the jersey after the game. Oh,
Right.
this looks awesome.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you tackled him 16 times.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
we were, well, I'm excited to hear that high school football's back because my wife and I, we just like to watch live football,
Yep.
and you're not going to a college or a pro game anytime
Yep.
soon.
Yep.
I
don't know what their rules are around attendance. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I know that we live right next to Echo Park Stadium where a bunch of our kids play, and so one of my guys had played up there last week, and I wasn't allowed. They were like, no, it's just parents this weekend. So who knows what it turns into. You know, I'm just happy these kids are playing. I'm happy they're around their teammates. My biggest fear was we weren't realizing that we're taking this after-school activity away from young men who are going to be going through really hard stuff, are going to be turning to more and more social media, which, like, dude, I'm 29, and I get on social media, and I feel like a terrible person, or I feel mad at somebody that I've never met.
Yep.
Like, you know, again, for every good, it's done a lot of good. I'm not one of those guys who's, like, all anti this, right? There's some good stuff that's come from it, but we got to be real about, you know,
the negative effects of it.
yeah, or like when you get on Instagram and then all of a sudden 3 hours go by.
You're calling me out, man. It's brutal.
I mean, like I you know, right when the screen time thing came out, I started doing the like, hey, you know, you can only have this much of it. And dude, it'd be like, yeah, I wake up freakishly early. I like wake up at 4:45 and like do my workout, and you know, I try to be like Jocko.
You're like, yeah, say you're a
He's
Jocko
savage,
guy.
Yeah.
4:30. Put your
But,
watch up.
Yeah, he's just an animal, and I post my watch every morning after a workout.
Do you?
I do.
Nice.
I do it because the kids talk crap to me if I don't on Sunday.
You got that
when I see
accountability.
it. Yeah.
Nice.
So I do it all week, and then I go there and I talk to them about how much better I am than they are, and they laugh, and, you know. But no, you know, I have that whole thing. But when I started the like screen time thing, dude, it'd be like 6:30 in the morning, and I would have hit my limit.
Yeah.
You know, and I set a limit like, you know, hey, I don't want to be on social media for more than 20 minutes in a day. When you look at what 20 minutes a day is, it's a lot of like days of your life when you add it up.
It really is.
And it goes by like nothing when you're on these platforms. It's just like, yeah, man, there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of bad. Anyways, I was worrying about these kiddos because they're going to do 2 days of virtual school. They're not going to see their friends. They're, you know, homecoming is going to be taken away. They're then going to not be able to play football. Like, you're going to, unfortunately, I mean, this is what I kept telling people. And if I ever got asked by a decision maker, I said, unfortunately, social media is going to be the healthiest thing they're going to turn to. That's what we have to realize. So we all think social media is not this great thing. That's going to be the healthiest option.
That's like the best choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we could start to talk about the not healthy options,
Sure.
right? And to me, it's like, what do we want to expose these kids to, you know, possibly contracting this virus playing football, or like, you know, turning to places that also provide a family atmosphere, right? That just so happen that you like, you know, deal drugs and shoot people.
Sure.
Like, we act like these kids are like in these bubbles that it's like they just won't leave because we tell them not to. Like, do you remember being 17?
Yeah.
My dad would be like, don't go see that girl. I was going to do anything I could, right?
Yep.
Like, she was hot, you know? That's like how life worked. When you're 17, you don't listen to anybody. You have to go figure out it on your own because you're dumb. I'm still dumb, right? Someone will tell me don't do that, and you know,
You're like, I got to try it first to see.
they bring it's the hot plate
Yeah.
at the Mexican
Oh,
restaurant.
my
They
God.
bring it to you.
It's
Don't
so
touch
true.
the plate. It's hot. You have to touch it.
Yeah. Your hand. They say hot plate, and you just still grab. You're like, what? You just told me. Every time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy they brought it back because that was my fear. My fear was, you know, we start to have then 2.5 hours after school that's unaccounted for. You know, even the kid. You know, there's some kiddos that are fortunate to have a parent home, and there's others that both parents are working. And to think that these kiddos are just going to go home after school and just sit down and do their homework is a tough sell.
It's a perfect world.
Yep. It's
But
a
it's
perfect
not
world,
reality.
and I wish that would happen.
Yep.
Right? But if there's anything I've learned, and my oldest is only 4, being a parent, if there's anything I've learned, it's never a perfect world, right? My 4-year-old will wake up one day and he'll be great, and then my 2-year-old daughter will decide today is the day. Today's the day I'm going to burn this house down, right? And then our 6-week-old will start screaming. So it's like it's just not perfect. They have a mind of their own. They're insane, and being a parent, I know. Can I say it?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
You're gonna. I know you're gonna be one soon.
I did tell the world.
It's the most fulfilling thing on planet Earth. My wife and I were believers. I really think it's your purpose when you first hold them for the first time. Not to be ooey gooey, but you feel completely different.
Yeah.
About the stuff that you thought mattered. Like you thought when you threw a touchdown or you did this was cool, and it's not.
Your perspective just 180.
Yeah. But they're hard, and they're not going to listen to you, and they're definitely not going to listen to you when they're 17.
Sure. So is that the bulk of your clientele? Is it?
Yeah, the bulk
kids?
of our
You seem to have a passion for kids.
Yeah,
which
the bulk of our business is, I would tell you, 4th graders to seniors in high school. The bulk of our business. We do have the random 2nd grader who will train, right? And it's not one of those he's out there
Wait, a 2nd grader?
Yeah, I shouldn't say that. We probably have
Third?
a 3rd grader, whatever.
That's impressive.
It's very young.
That's an investment.
It's very young, with the exception of you should see our evaluation process. These kids that make it through that, they're not like the 3rd grader you think of. Our training isn't like the hybrid of training and a daycare, right? Our coaches are tough. They're not daycare. If you're bringing them out there for childcare, your kid's not gonna make it, right? One of my favorite stories. One of my first kids ever was Austin Majeski, right? You'll have no idea who he is. In 6 years, you will.
Okay.
I think he's incredible. I started working with him when he was a 2nd grader, right?
Wow.
Everyone thought I was insane. The kid just could listen and stood still and could do every drop. So I'm out there.
Kind of got that it factor.
Yep, I'm out there with a high school coach who was one of my mentors at the time, and there's this divide between high school coaches and private trainers that used to exist. We've bridged that, and we have a lot of really good relationships now. But when I first started, the divide was still there. And this high school coach is jokingly, because Austin's out there, and at the time he's like a 3rd grader, and he's oh man, you got to be careful because a lot of people will think all you're in it for is the money then. And I said, okay, that's fair. Austin, come over here. And I said, hey, Austin, if we're throwing sluggo to the boundary, what is your footwork? He goes, well, it's 3 + 2, right? Which is a 3-step drop. You're going to pump fake and you're going to kick back for 2. Something I didn't know until I got to the NFL.
Okay.
But we're teaching these kids as young as we can, because the mission originally started as there was so much stuff I was trying to learn as a 24-year-old, right, that you can't learn when you're 24 and competing for a job for millions of dollars. You got to learn it earlier.
Should have been way down the road or way back. Yeah.
And then the coach is like, oh, awesome. And the coach is like, what coverage do you like again? He's like, I'm only going to throw sluggo against off safety. Why would I throw it against press? Double move against a press doesn't make sense. And the coach is like, oh yeah. And he's like, and then once we pump on 3, we're going to kick back and we're going to hold the safety, and then we'll get back out there because the receiver's job is to beat the corner. And then Austin goes back to training, and I was like, so what do you think, man? Are we just taking the kid's money?
Wow.
To me, it was one of those things where it was I get the perspective, right? It seems crazy, but we're not the 2nd grader you have in your head. We're not going to take him. We're going to tell the family, hey, come back in 2 years.
Gotcha.
The freak that's ready to train,
you just said that was a 2nd grader. That sounded like you were talking to John Gruden.
Dude, he's insane. That's what my favorite
crazy.
part about it is. He's, we were teaching him stuff that, his coaches joke about now, right? And he's only a 7th. No, he's an 8th grader now. And his coaches joke about it. They're like, dude, we don't know more than him. We just want to survive.
That's insane.
Right? But he, listen, our kids get coached off NFL film. They get coached off a bunch of stuff. And, it's everything I joke about. It's everything I wish I would have had when I was young and developing. And I wish I would have had access to it, and now they do.
I have a ton of friends who are high school coaches.
Yep.
I don't know anything about coaching football. I'm a huge fan, but one of my buddies coached at a really good high school football team back home in Oklahoma called Union. They're always a top 25 team in the nation. Yep. They played several teams. They played Hoover, Alabama, that used to be on the TV show.
I remember that.
Yeah,
that TV show.
Yeah, they played Hoover. They always played some of the top teams in Texas. But anyways, really good program. But my buddy was an 8th grade coach there, and he'd been around, and coaches move around. So anyways, he tells me he gets there and he coaches 8th grade, but he says the head coach there now or probably the whole program because they've been
Yeah.
good for years, but he's like, we run the same plays in high school as our third graders do, and
Yeah.
our fourth grader. He's like, it's the same thing. So these fourth graders are going through fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. They get to high school, and it's like coloring to them.
Yep.
They're like,
They
oh
know
yeah,
the
we're doing
playbook.
this. He's like, I mean, I played, and then of course Colton played and all that. You go to every year's different. He's like, the fourth graders and the high schoolers could talk to each other, and it would be fluid.
I think
And that's why they're so good.
Yeah, I think that's so cool when you have that kind of program structure. What's really funny is I did an interview the other day, and they asked, the guy was just like, hey, I have, just a theory question for you, which is we often say like, that program has it, right? That coach has, it. And he's like, what is it? It's organization and core values, right? They're organized, and they've decided one of their core values is we're going to teach everything all the way through. I just think that's all it is, right? You set up with a great process, and you're going to develop a great organization.
Yeah, I mean,
and then I'm sure what happens to them is what happens around here, which is where everyone says, oh, they recruit, that's why they're good.
Yeah.
No, they're good because they've created a process that wins, and that's why people want to go there. And they don't have to recruit. The kid shows up because he wants to go be a part of a winning culture.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean, look at the Patriots. It seems like every year, no matter who they plug in that system, they're probably going to win 10 games minimum, no matter who's there.
Yep.
Brady went down. I can't remember who his backup was. Matt Castle.
Castle comes in.
11-5, they make the playoffs as a wild card.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you make the wild card. It's crazy.
Yep. It just goes to show you what I think good leadership, what being organized, what communicating values. It just goes to show you that it's applicable. It's applicable to anything, right? Whether it's you planning your family household, right? Like who are my wife and I was like, who are the Jenkins, right? What
What
are
are you
our
about? Yeah.
standards, right? What do we want to instill in our kiddos? Like, it's people joke about it, right? Like you're the guy in Step Brothers, the crazy family that took the singing lessons, right? But
Is that the Jenkins?
Yeah. No, I'm not a good singer.
You haven't had a car in 5 years?
I also don't yell at my wife very much. She's usually the one giving me the business. But no, it's one of those things where it's just like I think there's something about just like even if you're just a guy, just writing down like what are you about? What's your priorities? Like. Who are you? Like, what's your mission?
Sure.
And if you don't know, awesome. Let's find it.
Yeah, get to work.
I have a lot of buddies, and I think this is kind of like, I don't want to sound like an old guy, right? But I think this is kind of our generation.
We're getting there.
We're like, hey, man, what do you, oh, I'm just trying to figure it out, and we don't want to have an opinion on anything, and we don't want to, offend anyone. And it's like, your opinion can't, in my opinion, can't offend anyone, right? It just we all have different ideas on how to get it done, and it's okay.
Yeah,
man, it's so weird, this like weird thing going on where you like disagreeing with someone is like
the end.
Like, oh, like, dude, I've been seeing it on Facebook where it's like, again, both sides, but it's like, oh, I'm unfriending any Trump supporter, or I'm unfriending any Biden supporter. It's insane that you can't disagree with someone.
I want to go back and screenshot you a picture of my post because I'm notorious on Facebook for like talking about how I hate politics and I hate how people are that way, and that's why I hate it. And I've said that before. I'm like, if I put a status, it was probably years ago or a year ago, but I was like, if you start your Facebook status by I'm unfriending you if, I'm like, I want to, like, why?
I don't get it. I don't get it because it's like
people are losing friendships over the dumbest things. And if they actually sat down like this and talked, it'd probably be over in half an hour.
And here's the other thing, and I don't want to act like I've met like Joe Biden or President Trump, but when you start meeting powerful people, to think that they really like care about you a ton
Right.
is a tough sell. It's just like, man, you
people
might
don't realize
rethink that. Like, we're all in this together much more than we think. And I don't know, man. Listen, I have my own political opinions, my wife and I, and I just like, it just discourages me. And it's just, to me, think of running a company like that. We're actually going to do our annual plan session tomorrow, right? 9 of us will be in here and talk about the future of our company, where we're going, yada, yada, yada. Imagine if I started the meeting as,
who are you voting for?
Imagine if like this is how we debated ideas was, I want to do this, and if you disagree with me, I'm going to fire you.
Yeah.
That's how politics are, right? If you're going to vote for this person, I'm unfriending you. just means that your ideas aren't good. Like, debate your ideas and don't be hurtful about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to call someone a racist or a socialist or whatever. Just debate the idea fundamentally. And then, like, I have this real opinion that, like, if someone really is one of those, like, words we're slapping on people, they're going to show it.
Sure.
Like, trust me, I've been around people that, like, aren't great people or were raised in a time where it was like we preached not the right stuff.
Right.
Right? They go and let you know. They're not going to hide behind and never show it. Every single person I've been around, no matter what their belief, if it's a negative belief, it comes out at some point.
Sure.
You're going to find out. You don't have to unfriend them because they voted for someone.
Yeah,
they're going to show it to you.
That made me think about, I think it was, I can't remember if the election was over or if it was about to start, but my wife and I were in California, went to a comedy club.
Yep.
And the guy started out, he was like, hey, where are my Trump guys at? And then he said, where my Hillary people are at, my
Yep.
Clinton. And then they had all these cheers and all that. And he said, congratulations. Neither of those people would piss on you if you were on fire. He's like, we're moving on with that. So
I just think it, I just think it's like, weird to see us kind of, it's weird to see us turning on each other. That's what I think is weird over ideas that a lot of stuff none of us will actually run into in our lives.
Yep.
So we're debating theoretical ideas about theoretical people that we've never met.
or never will.
And it's just, it's strange. And we're coming up with things that, rubbed us the wrong way from a certain time. And that's why I'm not going to like this person. It's like, man, there's a lot of stuff we have to work on as a country. There's a lot of stuff we have to work on as humans. But, I don't want to, like, get crucified for saying this. But, like, I think there's a reason a lot of people want to come here. Like, I wake up every day, like, thankful that, like, I try to, like, talk about the things I'm thankful for, right? My family, an opportunity to do some stuff, and, listen, my dad came from a terrible upbringing. My dad came from, abusive parents and 8 brothers and sisters. And, every time the mortgage payment came due, you just moved because you're not going to pay it. Not mortgage, right? The rent.
The rent, yeah.
And then he got himself to Highlands Ranch, Colorado, right? Which is, a really nice suburb. And it's like, we call it the bubble, nothing bad happens. So it's like, it's always hard for me when then people talk about, or, I have a buddy who's like, man, I can't do it. It's stacked against me. It's like, dude, we grew up next to each other. You have 2 parents at home. Like, your family's in, like, the top 10%
Of
You're
America,
1%er in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot of people that don't have water. What do you mean you can't do it?
Yeah.
So I just think it's
Might be a little harder, but you got to get after it. So.
Yeah. I just think it's there's no doubt that some people are up against it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a buddy who always says, he always says, just because you're up against it isn't an excuse to stay in the dugout, right? When you come to run it, right? If life is running the bases. And I think it's something powerful that, like, there's no doubt, man. There are people that start on third base, right? There are people that are born into royalty in this world.
Yep.
Like, real royalty. You can do whatever you want. You're a king. It's insane. And then there are people that are born with, like, nothing in a terrible home. But, I think that's what's so cool is those people oftentimes, like, go and do amazing things. Yep. Like, look at some of the story, like Deshaun Watson talking about, like.
Oh yeah, his story's cool, man.
Yeah, he's a quarterback in the NFL, and he's having a huge impact on people.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
Was it Warwick Dunn was the one who built his house with
Yeah.
when he was growing up as a kid because he lived in Atlanta.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's a really
the
cool
coolest thing,
story.
And now he's building houses.
Yep.
That's incredible. That's what we need to do. We need to look out for each other.
Yeah.
Not like think that this person who we're going to vote for is going to do it for us. I just don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, it's not.
I think they're going to try to do what's right for a majority of the country. But if we're really going to care about each other, you just go across the street and care about somebody.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really talks to their neighbors anymore.
No. I mean, we joke. We think we have a throwback neighborhood. Like,
It's old school per se.
man, like, everybody, like, I know my neighbors.
That's good.
We're outside. I was just talking to Kevin across the street and Tyler, and we're talking about, like, hey, man, I'm putting up Christmas lights November 1st. I got the edge, right? Our kids are all playing. I think it's like,
There's not a lot of that going on right now,
Just
so
go
that's
talk
really
to
good to
somebody.
hear.
That's what I think weirds me out about the social media and then the hatred is it's like you've sat on Twitter, you've looked at videos of people you'll never meet, and Twitter gave them to you because you're going to have a negative reaction about it.
Yep.
Because they know your political stance.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're so worked up that then now your brother, who just so happens to be of the other party, you're going to pick a fight with at dinner, who you haven't seen. Why? Like, neither of you, here's what I always tell everybody. I'll hear like a debate, and it'll get heated, and then it'll get personal. And they're debating about something that will literally, let's say 99%, probably not happen to either of them.
Yep. All hypothetical.
So what are you debating? You're debating an idea, and you're mad at each other, and you're going to say, oh, your mom sucks, right? Like, it's like, what are you doing? I don't know, man. It weirds me out. But I don't know. I guess that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Hopefully it stops. Hopefully after November we can like all chill out.
Yeah, right. I know. We've got like 4 more weeks, then hopefully people will be a little better, but who knows? I was going to ask you, do you have any kids in Colorado Springs that you're coaching? Or?
Yeah. We have Luke McAllister, so he's at Palmer Ridge.
Okay.
Which isn't Colorado Springs Monument. Because he's actually committed to CSU.
Okay.
So he's a Colorado State commit. We have Cale Cormany at Rampart.
If we can, my wife and I would like to go watch a game.
What we should all do is
Since
we
it's
should
back,
just get
so.
together, go to a game.
Yeah.
We'll go to a good game.
If we can.
If we'll find a way.
Yeah.
I'll tweet Polis. I'll get us in.
We were talking before we got on about kids going D1.
Yep.
I wanted to have you talk on that for just a little bit about, are your kids like that? They come in and they think they're good and they're like, they have to go D1? Or are you like, hey, there's opportunities D2, D3, D1 AA?
I feel prepped for this. What's cool is I answered this question before.
Because you were a D2 guy. So.
Yeah, we don't have that problem of false expectations because early on I identified that, listen, there's this issue. In 2014 when I first started doing this, there was this fundamental issue in my industry. In my industry, there's some not great people, in my opinion.
Okay.
Right? They tell you have a kid, they come to train, you tell them, oh, this kid's going to be great. He's not. He sucks. And you tell the parent that he's going to be great, and the parent watches him get better because if you practice, you'll get better. We can get really good at being bad, okay? And if you don't believe that, just go look at your buddy's golf swing who's beating you, but he's beating you with a horrendous golf swing. He's just gotten good at a horrendous golf swing, right? Let's be honest.
Good at a bad habit.
He's gotten really good at being bad. So, but if you were to put him in, like, let's say a tournament over 4 days, it would never hold up, right? But he's good enough to take some money off of you on Saturday, right? That's what I joke about. So this happens, right? The kid gets a little bit better. He gets a little bit better. And then he never really breaks through because, 1, he probably didn't have the floor to begin with. And then 2, we're not training him the right stuff. We're kind of in it for the wrong reasons, in my opinion. I identified that as our biggest issue because that eroded the trust from parents, and it also eroded the trust from high school coaches because then the parents telling the coach, hey, this guy says he's good, he's not, right? That was a majority of the negative feedback I got from high school coaches was like, hey, man, we appreciate what you're doing, but, we've had these experiences in the past. When I realized that was our issue, we started getting unbelievably data driven. So we have this sleeve called a Modus sleeve. You put it on, it gives us 6 different data points on you. We could tell you your fingertip velocity, your arm slot, how much it varies, your arm speed. We could tell you how much torque you have on your elbow. You're going to hurt your elbow.
You study this with these kids?
Yeah, well,
that's ridiculous.
So
in a good way.
This is the first thing they do when they come to an evaluation for us as a quarterback.
Seriously.
Yep, it's the
Wow.
first thing we get them in the Modus sleeve and we test all this. The reason for it is I didn't want our company to be the place where it was like, I think my kid's getting better. What I wanted was a month-to-month contract.
You want to prove it.
So you fire me at any time, and here's the data to back up how your kid's getting better. And then what this creates is it creates this bell curve because we work with D1, D2, NFL guys. I know what the ranges have to be. So what it helps is it helps us set expectations. A parent comes in and their kid tests at 52 fingertip velocity. Well, here's where he is. He's in the 30th percentile of his class or whatever.
Fingertip velocity?
Yep, fingertip velocity. Right?
I'm
How
mind
hard it
blown
comes
by
off.
this stats. This is crazy.
So for me, it's like, listen, here's where he's at. If you think your kid in the 80th percentile, right, is going D1, you have a problem, right? So for us, we've never had that false expectation because we can be upfront with the data, and say like, hey, listen, here's where your kid is. we always equate this data to the floor the same way that on average an NBA player is 6'4" or 6'6". That doesn't mean if you're 6'8", you're going to the NBA, but that's the threshold. So we view it as the threshold, right? You have to have this fingertip velo to have a shot. And then from there, it's about skill development. Did you really get a good shot in high school? What I think is broken about the D1, D2 current mindset, there's two things. One, we have kids thinking you get recruited to your skill level. You don't, right? You get recruited to your skill level and what kind of opportunity you had. If there was a D1 kid in front of you until you were a senior, it's going to be really hard to go D1. You only have 1 year of film.
Sure.
Right? That's not your fault. That's how it shook out.
Just a circumstance, yeah.
Right? I went to Fort Lewis College, right? I ended up in the NFL. I played in a preseason game, regardless of, some people are like, it doesn't count. Well, it's hard to do, right? I don't think I was a D2 kid, right? In theory,
Yeah.
You don't go to the NFL if you were. But we all get recruited to you don't get recruited to your skill level. There's plenty of guys that play D3 that end up and have 10-year NFL careers. So it's important for a kid to realize that, like, just because I go to a D2 school or I go to a D3 school or I go to an NAI school, that's not necessarily my skill level. It's how it shook out for the recruiting process. And I still have everything in front of me to go get, right? That's the one issue I see. The other issue is I just see it from a parent perspective. Becoming the D1 athlete is the new, my kid's a doctor or my kid's a lawyer, right? It's like cool to say at a dinner party. And we need to, as adults, realize if my dinner party coolness factor is based on what my kid's doing, I'm not cool.
Yeah, you're living vicariously through your kid.
Figure out, like.
What about the celebrity that faked the ACT scores? Did you see that?
Yeah.
The actress.
Again, it's not surprising when you start to.
It's sad.
When you start, it's not surprising when you overhear or you're a part of some conversations where there's, you could be at a dinner with someone and they'll never touch on what they do, like what they're passionate about, what they love about their spouse, their faith. And again, it doesn't have to be like, hey, here's my faith in Jesus, like whatever their faith is, right? Everyone has a different thing that they hold, right? You could go through a 2-hour dinner and never touch on that. All they talk about is who they know, or they met this person this one time, or like my watch or my car, or it's like, and like, listen, I'm not going to act like I'm perfect. I have those same things where it's like, man, I'll see a new Audi and it's like, that's sick.
Yeah.
Right? Or a Tesla. I want to try that. I don't want to drive. I want to fall asleep. But, I think we're losing substance. And when you start to lose substance, it's not surprising that someone pays to get a test taken for their kid to get into a school. Because they want to go to dinner and say, guess where my kid got into. But again, like, dude, if someone starts a conversation with, like, here's who I know, or guess what, someone I know did, I immediately think to myself, you're not cool. Like, tell me something about you. Like, what gets you going? Like, what are you passionate about?
Right.
Like when we first started talking, and I'm not going to, I don't want to like stroke your ego, but like your passion for this is sick. That's awesome.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think that's what makes us like innately cool and like can connect to each other is when you talk to someone like, I'm passionate about this. And I think it's like, I also think it's what's refreshing when you hear we joked about Rogan before this, right? Like there's a reason people listen to people that are just genuine and honest. They don't always say what you agree with.
Yep.
But you at least know they're not BSing you, right? You know they ain't lying to you.
Yeah. What I liked about you when I listened to that podcast you did about 6 months ago was you talking about how you try to be real intentional with your time.
Yeah.
And then how you're admitting you're like, hey, I get caught up in stuff sometimes. Yeah. I waste time, or I get braggy or kind of get sidetracked, but you're really focused. You're like, I get up in the morning, I do these things, and I try to be better and try to like, what do I stand for, or what do I really want to be about, and not get caught up in everyone's mix. So
to be transparent, like it wasn't like always like that.
Yeah, it's not easy.
There was like when I first started training, like I was so consumed with what people thought of me as a coach, right? Like I probably started to try to be intentional about it and find more like substance in my life because I like woke up one day and I was like, why in the world do I care if I have followers on Instagram? Like, you know,
I think everyone would be lying if they didn't
Yeah.
say that when you put up a picture, if you don't have some likes, you're like,
Yeah.
hey, what's wrong?
what the heck's wrong?
Yeah.
And it's like, why you like it, we all have to remember, like, and you know, I did this, dude. I did it months ago when I just was joking about dunking on people. It was fun because everyone would be like, "Oh, you're a savage," you know. It was fun,
Yeah.
but it's like, you know, you need to take a step back of yourself and at least realize, like, what are you doing it for? You're doing it for that pat on the back,
Right.
right? So I think as long as you can be honest with yourself, but I just think it's dangerous to get consumed in, like, you know, things that don't matter. And what's always so funny, and I tell everybody this, like, if anyone asks me, like, man, I want to start this business and this is what I want, like, you know, I want to make this or I want to do this. If you start with that in mind, you'll never get it. I never thought about, like, making money. You know what I mean? And, like, we have a big company now. We do okay, right? Like, you can't start with, like, a not substantial. Nothing will grow if it's not, like, substance that you start with. That's
Yeah.
my opinion, right? If you start with, like, you know, you see it with girls all the time, right? Where there's, like, you know, like, a girl will post a scandalous picture, and it's like she has like 100 followers, and it's like, well, why are you doing that? You're, like, starting with, like, the end result in mind of you want a bunch of followers.
Yep.
Like, why should, like, you know, get a reason for someone to follow you, and then, like, all this other stuff will come. I just think, like, I don't know. I just think we sometimes start with frivolous stuff,
Oh yeah.
and then it's hard to stick it out. If your end game is something frivolous, it's easy to give up.
Oh yeah.
If your end game is, like, you know, for us, right? We want to, you know, we have a company goal of we want to be publicly traded one day.
I did hear you say that.
It would be insane, right? No company's ever done it from, like, a sports training perspective. That's our company goal. Our actual substance is to have the most impact on kids. Well, how do you do that? You scale, right? That's the only way to have the most amount of impact. So for us, it's like, if it's rooted in substance, I think you have a shot. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. Stuff's hard, unpredictable. We might get 7 more pandemics and then everyone's out of business. But
yeah, I mean, you never thought, as you said, that you'd have 4 or 5 launches in different cities and
no.
be the CEO of this company.
Yeah.
When you started out on a field in nowhere, Colorado for $25, and now you got a salary.
I literally thought I would never. I had this, like, really hard thought process one day that I'm never going to be at my kid's game because I'll always be doing lessons on Saturday. It's like, man, that's going to suck if I have to miss those, right?
Yeah.
Well, the big man works out. The big man upstairs worked it out to where it's, who knows what's going to happen in 12 years. But, it looks as if I'll be able to take a couple Saturdays off and go watch him play.
Yeah,
so, man. But I also, I just think treating people right, starting with substance, figuring out who you are. I don't want to act like I'm, like, this crazy, like, self-help person, but I'm like into those books. I don't think there's a shame in it. Like, I like to read them.
No, I do too. I think you got it. I think you absorbed the information well.
I think it's tough if you, it's always a slippery slope. Don't take it as gospel, right? The way they pulled themselves out in their entire blueprint's not going to be for you. But man, if you take something from somebody each time, you're eventually going to have the blueprint for you. And I think it's like, people always joke like, man, I don't want to read that self-help junk. It's like, dude, what do you mean? You'd rather watch, Stranger Things? Like, how does that help you?
Yeah, that's something I actually not struggle with, I guess. But so I read a lot of self-help books as well. And back to what I was telling you, sometimes I would limit it's like all or nothing. I'm like, like I read, I can't remember it was by Aubrey Marcus who was on it.
Yep.
I read his book, and when I read it, I was like, I read it like it was like a rule book or a guideline. I was like, I have to do everything Aubrey Marcus does, or I'm going to do nothing.
Yep.
Like, he's like, when you get up in the morning, do 25 push-ups and take a big chug of water.
Yep.
And then if I woke up and I didn't do it, I'm like, well, I'm not going to exercise.
Today's done.
Yeah. I'm like you said, I don't have to follow this rubric. I'm like, just take a piece from here, take a piece from Jocko, take a piece from David Goggins, who's insane, stuff like that.
Him.
Yeah.
I love him. I do think I think you're right. I find myself doing that a lot where if I'm really into a book, it's like, I find it a lot with our company. Because I think, like, currently with, like, I view every self-help of, like, optimizing me. Like, how can I get the most out of me? And like right now I feel like I'm like getting at night when I lay down, I'm like, dude, I did my 100%. I got my bandwidth in, right? Like, what is it? It's like 8:40, right? Like I've been going nonstop since like 4:45. We had a bunch of calls. So I feel like I'm optimized there. Where I find myself doing that with the implementation is like our company.
Okay.
If I like read a book and it's like Steve Jobs wrote it, I'm like, oh God, I want to run a company like Apple, right?
Right.
But dude, they're a tech company, right? And it's always like good to have that perspective, like you're saying, of like take this from this person, this from this person, and then at the same time let yourself off the hook, man. I want to wake up at 4:45 every morning. I'm not gonna. You could ask my wife. There's times if I wake up at 6, like she'll tell. I don't do it as much anymore. I've like calmed down. But there were times when like if I woke up at 6, I'd be like,
you just beat yourself up,
freaking banging our dresser, like slamming it shut because I was so mad at myself because I felt like I lost all this time. And then you quickly realize that, dude.
You got to sleep in every
God
now and
built your
take a
body
break.
a certain way. If it overslept the 9 alarms you set, you needed it, right?
Right.
So I also feel like I found this life hack, and I don't want to be this guy to shortcuts. It's not a shortcut, but have you heard of the Ruggy alarm clock?
No.
I
but
tell you,
I do need a new alarm clock,
I'm
so
going
I'm
to be
interested.
sponsored by them one day because
right.
I've been nonstop talking about them.
The Ruggy alarm
The
clock.
Ruggy alarm clock. It's a alarm clock, old school, where it's like, rah, 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 but it's a rug that you have to get up and stand on for you can set it for anywhere from 30 to 20 seconds.
Okay.
To turn it off. So I've been ever since I got it, I haven't missed an alarm because you wake up and you
got to be on the
it.
floor.
And if you stand up for 10 seconds and then you go back to bed, I don't know. You got to get your juice going.
Right.
But by the time I'm up for 10 seconds, I'm awake. So you can also I programmed it to do the like Vince Lombardi speech of like winning's a habit. So I'm like juiced up. My wife hates it, right? We have a new baby, so she wakes up in the middle of the night to feed him, and then at 4:45 she wakes
Vince
up to
Lombardi.
Vince Lombardi. With that being said, she's the most supportive woman in the world, so she rolls over and like.
My wife is gonna listen, and she's gonna be like, she's either gonna be happy or she's gonna be like, damn it, Tim, because I tell her all the time, like, hey, I'm notorious for snoozing alarms, and it's my own fault.
Yep.
But I think the cell phone is the problem.
Yep.
I need the old school or the rug
So when we had Jet, he's our third. What a name, right? He better be fast or he's gonna get killed in the locker room.
I have a friend with a kid named Jet.
Really?
Jet
That's
Jackson.
Awesome. That is awesome. Another JJ.
Yep.
We had Jet, and what you don't realize, and I don't want anyone to take this as me complaining, right? My wife is 100 times better than me. I want to say that right now. But when
you did say that before.
When they get up at night, right? Like you wake up, and it was like I like went on like a 3-week run of not being able to get up on time, and I was like, why? And I would snooze, and a lot of it I think was like, she's getting up a bunch, and then you wake up, and then and then you go back to sleep, and then you hit snooze a bunch. So I was like, I need something that's like guaranteed. I have to do something to turn it off, whether it be a real alarm clock that you have to hit or something that is going off. There's also times where I'm 100% convinced, ever since I did this dang Apple update, I don't even know where my phone that my alarm don't go off. I'm 100% convinced of it, that it's like, or because I keep it on silent, I don't know. But yeah, so I got the Ruggy alarm clock.
And it's called what?
Ruggy, because it's it's a rug. It's ugly as sin too. So if your wife, like mine, cares about like what it looks like when people come over, you're gonna have to put it away under the bed at times. But
I may have a Ruggy in a couple weeks.
Dude, I'm telling you, I hate acting like it's like this. It just gave me this like it was a good built-in. I've been on this thing, and we were talking about it, where I feel like I'm optimized, right? I feel like I'm getting the most out of me. I feel like it's just like being honest. I am not like, I listen to who's the motivational preacher, Eric Thomas, right? E.T. Tom, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't
E.T.
know.
He did the like he did the famous oh my gosh. He did the famous, like, if you want to be successful, meet me at the beach, put the head under the water. You never heard this?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, my God.
I'll have to look it up.
We got to get you dialed in. Anyway, so I listened to him, and he talks about, like, and he's giving his motivational thing, and I like stuff like that when I'm working in the background. I like it. And he's giving it about, like, there's a lot of times I wake up before my alarm clock. You know what I mean? Guys say that. I'm passionate. I'm waking up before my alarm clock. And I'm like, dude, I hit my snooze 50 times. I think there's a lot, like, I would always I want to be the guy who like wakes up before his alarm clock. There's a lot about just being honest about yourself. I'm not a morning person.
Yep.
And I
Same.
somehow get up at 4:45. And it's because I got this damn ruggy alarm clock and I'm in love with it.
What time do you go to bed?
It depends. I would like to be in bed at 10, but, last night I was up until midnight, 4:45. And again, I'm not trying to advocate, don't sleep, because I think sleep's super valuable. But
You got a lot going on.
there's certain times where you got to burn the candle on both ends, and there's certain times where you're going to be able to go to bed at 9.
Well, I think that kind of ties back into what you talked about on the the fitness one we keep referencing. Whenever you said you're just super intentional with your time,
Yeah.
and then you talked about for people who probably didn't listen, but you talked about people like, I'll get off work at 4 and then I'm home earlier.
Yeah.
You're like, well, they're like, you're working till 6. You're like, well, I'm at work till 6, but when I get home,
Yeah, I don't
I'm
drink,
doing I'm doing things I love, and I'm more passionate, or I'm doing things that are worth something, as opposed to drinking a beer on your porch.
Yeah, the biggest misnomer is that time around is time. It's not. Time around people isn't time, right? I see it with people I work with. If I go into the office and I don't say anything to anyone, and then to act like our relationships are better, people just look around freaked out, I'm gonna fire everybody, right? That's not good. Time around isn't good. If Dad comes home and Dad just grabs a beer and sits down and watches TV, I joke about this, but I actually think this is true. Here's 2 hypothetical situations, right? I'm a kid playing in a playroom, right? My dad comes home at 6. Let's say my dad comes home at 4. The work-life balance people. My dad comes home at 4. My dad walks in. He grabs a beer. He starts playing Xbox. I'm in the playroom, right? He plays the Xbox until I go to bed, okay? Then there's a dad who works till 7, comes home, only has 30 minutes, let's say. Plays with them the whole 30 minutes, reads them a book, they go to bed. Who who would advocate that the kid that's dad was home at 4, the kid was getting better messaging?
Right.
That's my beef with it. It's work-life balance, you got to have time around. Doing what?
Yeah, what are you doing? Are you on your
Work-life
iPhone, or
it's my big thing, and I get in this argument with my dad a lot about Social Security, because he always, he's not, by no means is he he worked himself into who he is, right? He's not a guy who wants something for nothing, but he always jokes I paid in a ton. I always joke about who told us we deserved retirement? Who told us we deserved work-life balance? We were, I think it's pretty clear we're on this planet to work, right, and be passionate. And work to me could easily work is also working on your family, working on your kids, being there. I just think it's I don't know. It makes me so mad because it's I have so many buddies where it's Emily and I and our kids will go on this nice trip, and they're like, man, it's, you're lucky to have that. It's nope, not
Not lucky.
Not lucky. You've watched every Stranger Things. I have no idea what those kids are chasing, right? I haven't seen the aliens yet, but I'm sure there'll be time for me to watch it one day. But it's dude, work-life balance is just it's so I don't want to be a jerk. It's so stupid, though. It's so stupid. I agree with work-life balance from the idea of pour yourself into your life and your work. But the work-life balance from I need as much time at home as I do at work, it's why?
Yeah, your balance is not
what
just
about
being
the
at
other
home.
way? There are times where it's you know what I want? Life. I'm not going to do anything for work. That's good too.
Right.
You need that. My goal is when I go on vacation to not look at anything. I ain't emailing you back if I'm on vacation.
That's
right?
good.
I want to hang out with my kids and my wife. And then sure enough, 36 hours later, after I've laid by the pool enough, I'm I need to get back to it, right? We all are like that.
Get back in the flow.
You're built like that. I just think yeah, man, it frustrates me. But I do think that it's about being, intentional with, what are you trying to do right now? And are you actually getting it done? When you were talking, hey, I'm going to go out and, the family's finally going to be all together again, right? We're all going to travel in and be together again. That's awesome, right? And then you want to make sure everyone's not on their phone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's the stuff where it's I joke where it's people are oh, you're around them all the time. It's no, I'm not. They're at the place, but they're on their phone. We're not around each other. And then the people that are on their phone, you're really connecting with. I really I've audited my friend circle, right? Like my time is pressed. If it's like
We got
I have
kids, a
buddies who want to
business,
hang out, but when we go to dinner, all you're on your phone, I ain't hanging out with you. We're still friends. I still love you. And you've probably gotten to know me well enough now. I'm gonna tell you, like, dude, either get off your phone or I'm going
leaving.
home. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, what are you reading?
Yeah, when my parents came up about a month ago, I tried to really do that, and I would catch myself, and I'd say, since they're going to be here for the weekend, to be like, I don't need to text so and so or my buddy, and I'm like, let's try to, or scroll on Instagram. I'm like, because I'm on Instagram every day. Parents are here once a quarter, once a month. So
I've tried to get to the point where, like, if I find myself doing it, I at least feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to do it.
We're not going to be perfect. We're going to pick up our phone. But I want to feel bad if I do it. I don't want to
don't want it to be the norm.
Exactly. I want to feel bad. And then I also want to start to call people out, because it's like the people that you're at dinner with that are on Instagram the whole time are also the people that then are like, man, my boss hates me and that's why I haven't ever gotten a promotion. It's like, no, dude, you're just like probably on Instagram at work and you're not working very hard.
Yep.
I want to be a good friend, and I've quickly realized that being a good friend isn't like, hey man, your hair looks nice. That's like part of it. But like being a good friend is like giving like real
criticism, constructive criticism.
Like, and I want people around me that like would give me the same. Like, God forbid I ever do something stupid where it's like, like you're jeopardizing something of meaning. You want people in your corner that are going to step up and say, bro, what are you doing? Right? Like I find that all the time with athletes when we talk about them going broke or getting on substances or something like that. Like, you had a bunch of people in your corner that liked being around you. You didn't have a friend. A friend's going to look at you and be like, yo.
Yeah. You had a bunch of yes men
like,
in your
hey
corner.
man, it was fun to go to the bar, that one time. We shouldn't go every day, right? Like, you need people that are going to tell you that.
Yeah.
You don't want people that are like, oh, yeah, man, let's do it again, because they have nothing. Like, I just think that's the kind of friend I want to be. I want to be the kind of friend that, maybe I pissed somebody off once, but hopefully they look back and say, like, okay, Tim at least was, like, trying to be genuine with me and not.
Well, we're creatures that most people are creatures like to be comfortable. So when people make you uncomfortable, tell you things, it kind of hurts. And a lot of times people, especially in today's world, they just, and I'm guilty of it too.
Well, we all are, man. I'm guilty of, like, hey,
comfort
let's go
feels
hang out with
good.
these people. They're gonna make you feel good,
Yeah.
right? But
it's hard to be like you and say, hey, I need you to tell me if I'm slipping, or I need to not waste so much time. Or
well, we tried to build it. What I would tell you too is we've tried to build it in our company, and that's hard. Because at first people aren't used to like radical candor of being able to tell their boss, like, hey, this sucks. This part of this sucks.
Well, like you said, how many companies out there, I don't know anything about the coaching world, but how many companies out there are hurting for money or trying to build their clientele and get sales where you're like, hey, this kid might not be ready yet. Let's bring him back in a year or two. How many of those people are saying, oh, he's great. Bring him in every day. Yeah.
They're taking him. It's part of the like, hey, don't let your soul, right? Like, no dollar's worth your soul, in my opinion. Right. And if you don't believe in, hey, we're working to get into heaven or whatever, no dollar's worth whatever you believe in.
Yeah.
No dollar's worth, compromising on whatever code you live by.
Right. Your moral compass.
Yep. That's one of my fundamental beliefs. And then ultimately, that parent's going to talk to someone. So when you take their money for 12 years and the kid turns out that he actually isn't very good, that parent going to tell people, hey, this guy told me for this long that this was going to happen. He didn't get any better.
Yeah. You might have that one sale right here, but then you lose 5-10 down the road.
Yep. And it's just not worth it. And it's just not worth, I just have this, thing. And I really believe that the way you win is treating people right. And having respect for each other and in a free market, right, that we're in, as free as it gets, the only way you stay in business, if customers decide to buy from you, they're only buying from you if you're good. No one's forced to buy our quarterback training. Right?
Yeah.
We're not Excel Energy where we have certain areas that we get to cover, right? And I'm not making a knock against Excel. I always say them, but there's so many options, right? Your job is to earn your customer's business, and your job is to keep it by doing a good job. And that's what I think is beautiful about a free market, right? Is that ideally customers vote with their feet, and if you're doing a good job, you get bigger and you turn into Amazon, where you started out delivering books really well, and all of a sudden you deliver everything. And that's a tangent in and of itself. Everyone like gets mad about how much money Bezos has, and I'm like, listen, I get it, but get mad at someone else. Get mad at someone who took your data and sold it without you knowing. Don't get mad at the guy that brought a toothbrush to you in 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, this dude made everyone's life better.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much stuff I buy on Amazon.
Oh yeah. Well, people don't realize, for all the people, Jeff Bezos was an entrepreneur,
Yep.
and for every Jeff Bezos, there's thousands of people that tried something and failed.
Yep.
And yeah, he's worth whatever, 500 billion or something.
Yep.
He's got a lot of money. He built it. It's his empire. And guess what? You guys want to take his money now, which I understand he's filthy rich, probably didn't need it.
Yep.
But what if this guy failed? Are you going to pay him back?
Yeah.
No. You would have never known his name.
No,
like I said, he was selling books.
He
took a loss for 4 years in a row
Have
or
you
something.
seen the picture of his poster where it's painted Amazon and he's in this office and it looks like hell?
No.
Oh, you got it.
I've just seen old pictures of him
Yeah.
carrying books and looking like a sleazy car salesman. And
Man, dude, it's like, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I get it, man. I get it if right now everything, especially in the heights of the pandemic, like, you're really hurting, and then you see people that have that, man, I totally get it.
no, yeah, I do too.
I think there's massive hypocrisy, though, in the people where it's like, I'm against this, and they say that on their iPhone. It's like, dude, then vote with your dollar. You don't have to buy from Amazon or Walmart or King Soopers. You do because deep down inside, you care more about the 30 cents than to go down the street and shop at mom and pop.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I get it.
You're being a huge hypocrite.
Yeah, but like, just, be honest that, like, hey, the reason I'm so mad about it is because of currently what's going on with me here. I get that, man. We all go through it. I get super mad. I used to get so pissed off at IMG Academy. Why are they so, big? Yeah, and I was grinding out for 12 hours. I quickly realized that it's like, we're just going to take them down. We're going to launch multiple markets. They have just Florida.
Yeah, you're
Let
growing.
them have Florida. I'll take the rest.
That's awesome. That's good stuff, man. I agree with pretty much everything you said. Like,
It is a tough thing to navigate, though, because you nailed it, right? Which is, you look at it and there's a lot of massive amounts of wealth. You would hope, that maybe there's some, giving and some other stuff tied.
And there
to
is.
it. And there is. And I think that's where it's,
people like to look at the bad. They don't look
Yeah.
at the good. Maybe his tax situation is weird. I don't know. But he's only doing what is legal in the U.S.
Yeah.
And how many people does Amazon employ, for God's sakes?
Here's my issue with the tax stuff, too, is it's like, I hear Republicans and Democrats both say it, and guess who created the tax code? Republicans and Democrats.
Those bastards. Yeah.
We all, like, it's like everybody did it. So it's not like, this isn't like some partisan issue.
You're telling me this guy doesn't get audited every year?
Yeah.
If he was doing something illegal, it would have already been found out.
And it's so funny that, we just like randomly picked these teams. And it was like, when I watched that Social Dilemma documentary.
Yeah.
And it was like,
It was good.
it was really good. And they talk about the divide between, like, and it's only getting worse because of social media. And it just like, I even found myself, on it where it was like, you're kind of like, you feel like you're on a team. And it's like, that's just not the way to look at it. You shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't feel like it's us versus them. You shouldn't feel like I'm on this team. You should just feel like, here are some things that I feel strongly about, right?
Here's my core.
Because of my moral code or, what I came through. And this is why I'm going to vote for it. And I get in disagreements about it all the time, and it's fundamentally okay. Like, I like debating the idea. I really like debating. I don't know why, but like,
It's really sad that there's not a lot of real debates anymore.
No,
it's all just a joke.
And one of my, like, Justin Holland, my probably one of the guys I'm closest with at our company, because he took over the Parker quarterback stuff and he's run it, did a great job. We like debate about political stuff all the time. And it's like fun because we debate the idea. We don't debate like
the end result. Yeah.
Like, or get personal. And we like disagree on a lot of stuff. And we always say that's what's so cool about it. Like, great friends. We disagree on a lot. That's okay.
Yeah. Me and my wife always say, like, when we see people are even talking about it, I'm just like, if we all thought alike, we'd be a bunch of robots. I mean, we're getting there. Like, if you want to all think about the same thing, it's just, it's not fun and it's not logical.
The thing that freaks me out is that, like, we're getting to a point where if you want to think different, it's not okay.
Yeah, it's not.
And that's strange because we wouldn't have anything that we have if people thought the same.
Yep.
We would have never, listen, you want to be honest, we would have never freed slaves. We'd have never had women vote. We would have never done all this stuff that is the right thing to do if we all thought the same.
Yeah, because at the time, those were outcasts.
Yeah, we would all just kept thinking, oh, why would women vote?
Right.
And now we've realized my wife's way smarter than me. Of course she should vote.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, but I think there's a lot of, I always get reinvigorated by conversations like this. And I always remind myself, right? A majority of people are us. Like, they're normal. They're willing to talk about it. They're not like the person you see on Twitter.
Yep.
That just like is saying something that like, is it like even a person? Because it's like, not their name or their picture.
It's just one of those deals because like with you, I probably have a conversation with you once a year, but then if I follow you on Instagram, I'll see your stuff on Instagram every day. So people see it more and then they misconstrue it or they take it the wrong way. And then, like you said, people just get heated for no reason. Things that are probably never going to happen anyways.
What's been hard for me to get used to is like doing stuff like this, or when I started to be vocal on Twitter, was then like what I didn't realize was the people that were going to have like a real terrible opinion or reaction to me that like don't know anything about me.
Yeah. And they never
That
will.
was strange. So it was like one of those eye-opening experiences, like, okay, should I watch what I say? And then I came to the realization of like, no, I'm going to just be genuine, right? Like I've said stuff on here that's not like the most popular of like, you need to get your ass up and, accomplish what you want to do.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be like, oh, well, easy for you to say. Well, no, like you wouldn't have wanted my life 8 years ago.
Yeah. Someone's going to just see what you put about kids playing football. And then, like you said, they automatically assume that you're just trying to make money.
Or you're trying to kill the kids. That was my favorite response. Someone was like, you're just trying to kill kids. It's like, what?
And then, and a lot of those people too don't actually believe what they're saying.
No,
they just want to get interaction and get
And then the people that do believe, like, I think a lot of people have formulated opinions, COVID and kids specifically, and they don't know any of these kids.
Yeah,
like don't tell me that this virus is going to kill more kids than are going to suffer from depression and possibly take their own lives. Like that happened. So it's like, don't like talk to me about like, and then you ask them, it's like, oh, I don't have any kids. I don't talk to high schoolers. It's like, what? What do you mean? Like, why do you have an opinion on it then?
And they go, well, they obviously the first thing they do is go worst case scenario too.
Yeah.
You're like, worst case scenario, they get COVID and die. The worst.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, maybe they don't ever get COVID, or maybe I saved them from, a bad home life, or maybe I develop them to a young man.
Well, this is what I talked about. A lot of people, there was a lot of debating around like, oh, a lot of people were like, well, the reason they can't play is because there's a lot of consequences that we don't know yet. Okay, which valid, but then you're talking about the game of football. You're talking about like these people are making these arguments about we can't play football because there's a lot of things we don't know, that you could develop, right? The heart disease or whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of,
Which is a true concern.
Which is completely true, except this person, right, tweeting this is consuming social media, which we have no idea the effects of. They're taking Adderall, they're drinking energy drinks. It's like, okay, so, it's like, to me, that's the hypocrisy, right? It's rich of us to say, this is what we need to be cautious of because we don't know the end results. It's like, dude, you're literally scrolling on something.
Eating fast food.
That's like notifying you and you're getting crack into your brain, right? Like that's what these notifications are.
Eating Taco Bell as you scroll,
Or like where, again, I don't want to sound like an anti-masker. I wear my mask when I go out. But it's like the wear your mask to care about my health. No, bro, wake up and work out and eat right to care about your health. Like, I just want everyone to care about like what they're doing, and then in turn we'll also start caring about each other,
like the fundamentals.
Like it's just like rich of people to be like, man, care about my health, and they consume McDonald's every meal,
right? It's
like, what do you mean? You're doing, or like the people smoking a cigarette, right? They got their mask pulled down smoking a cigarette. Put your mask on. It's like, what? You're already killing yourself.
Okay.
So, again, I don't want to sound like this guy that doesn't take it seriously or anything like that, because we lost a lot of people, and there's like and the economic impact and all of this is serious stuff. I do just wish that these conversations, like I've yet to hear a politician discuss, hey, guess what? Like vitamin D or working out has shown that
it helps you not have serious side
Build
effects.
an immune system. Yeah.
So if that's true, right, like why are we not talking about that too? Like,
yeah.
to me, then the logical thing is whether you believe in masks or shutdowns or whatever you believe in, that's fine. You should also then believe, and y'all need to work out, right? Or you need to, let's cook some chicken breast this week and not cover it in barbecue sauce.
That's good. No, I absolutely agree. That's good
I just
stuff.
think it would be nice to hear, like, I don't know. I honestly think that that's the way to political victory.
Is what?
Just be radically honest.
That'll never happen, unfortunately.
No doubt.
Kind of.
I guarantee, though, if someone, like, came on stage and, it wasn't, like, as much of a, but just was, like, honest the whole time. I don't know if they can win the president, but I think you could be a senator.
Yeah.
I think you could be a senator right now running on, like, hey, listen, man, we're going to wear masks because it seems like it helps. We're going to do these certain things because it seems like it helps. And you know what? A lot of you guys are going to start working out and eating right, and here's how you can do it, and it's going to help you not get sick.
Well, you know, Rogan recommended Jocko for president. He's like, he'd make the great president. Him and The Rock.
Dude, I would love to see Jocko. Because Jocko, to me, is the guy who's, like, absolutely no nonsense other than it's about you. And again, right, as a believer, I don't find that completely true. But, like, it's a good message to try to, like, take responsibility. If you take responsibility over everything, there's going to be some things that you're like, man, it stinks. It's my fault. It's raining today. It's not, right?
But the message is
but
still.
The idea, but when you think about this, there's two fundamental ways to look at it. And this is what makes me sad about the people that don't feel like they have any control. You could literally live your one life here thinking everything's in your control and you can do it, or nothing's in your control and everything's done to you. Even if the everything's in your control and you can do it is wrong, man, I'd rather live there. Because the other one's super depressing.
Yep.
I also understand, like, there's people, I think a majority of it's mindset of, like, the people that are disenfranchised and, like, really feel like, I'm not saying that they don't feel that way. I guarantee they do. But it's just like, man, I wish we could figure out a way to, like, help people see that, no, you can do this. I think that's why, like, I honestly think that's why I connect with a lot of these kiddos is I wasn't like this, like, I wasn't like the number one recruit in the country, right? I wasn't like someone that you can't like, that wasn't me. I played JV as a junior. You know what I mean? I was like,
you had to grind it out.
Average. I was 165 pounds. Like, I look like your next door neighbor. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, and I think people connect with the idea of, like, dude, he made it to the NFL and he, like, is everything I am. Like, it's not some, I don't look like Cam Newton. Like, if Cam Newton walks in here, he ain't like us.
Yeah.
He's a better version.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
LeBron James, he's a better version of everybody else. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
he's just
blessed.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's hard, I think, to connect with from, like, I can do it too. And I think that's what a lot of these kiddos see is they see, like, a guy who was like them, right?
Yeah.
Or they're better than. And they're like, if he could do it, I sure as hell can. And I think a lot of times, right, you know the deal with sports. A lot of times as a kid you hear, like, oh, that's a good idea, but what's your plan B? Or you hear, like, oh, okay, good, keep dreaming. But it's like, no, man, if you really think you can do it, and we don't, if a kid thinks he can do it and you don't let him off the hook, what I mean by that is, like, if you were to tell me, hey, man, I do, I want this full-time podcasting, right? My first thing would be, how many have you made this week, right? I think that's an important question to ask kids when they tell you something crazy, right? Like, hey, I want to be an NFL quarterback. Awesome. Did you work out this morning? Did you throw this morning? No. Are you sure you want to be an NFL quarterback? Like, what do you do when you get home?
Yeah, you got to get after
Fortnite. Okay. Because it's perfectly possible for all of us to achieve, I shouldn't say all of us, for 99% of people. Like, there are people that get in massive car accidents and can't move, right? But for 99% of us, we can do it as long as our work backs it up. Too many of us are like, I want to do this, and then...
Yeah, it's kind of in a different way, but I always kind of relate stories to stories. But, like, so you know Travis Barker?
I don't.
From Blink-182?
Okay. I know
he's the drummer.
Yep. Okay.
The guy that's, like, absolutely destroyed in tattoos.
Yep.
He's like, his famous quote or story is he's like, I started getting tattoos, and then he said, I want to do this for a living and be a drummer, so I'm going to tattoo my neck and my face and my hands, so I have no other choice.
Yep, because he ain't getting hired as a banker.
That might not have worked, right? He's not going to sell insurance,
Yep.
so that might not have worked out, but it did.
Yep.
But now, and then he talks about, I read his book, and so then he talks about his son, and he's like, so my son is obviously very blessed. You know, we're very well off now, and I kind of roughed it, and I'm one of the most successful drummers in the U.S., but he's like, I have tons of tattoos. My son's like, I want a tattoo. And then he's like, not only does my son want a tattoo, he wants a face tat, because the young kids are like, I want a face tat. And he's like, it's hard for me because I'm like covered in tattoos. He's like, but son, he's like, you don't know how many nights I slept on my friends' couches eating Doritos because I wanted to be a professional drummer.
Yep.
He's like, I didn't just get these tattoos and like, I'm going to figure it out. He's like, I was drumming for free 5 nights a week. He's like, I've been in 7 different bands. He's like, so you can't just get a face tat because you got to make your way. He's like, maybe, you know, you figure it out and commit, you know. So it's kind of similar story.
It's 100% true. Everyone asks me like, what, like, because we have 2 boys, right? So I always get asked, oh, your kid's gonna be quarterback. I'm not gonna push him in anything. You want to know why? When we were at Fort Lewis and we were 4-40 or whatever the hell we were when I was there, it's not fun. Like, it's not easy. So if you're gonna push your kid into something, push him into something easier.
You guys played in some brutal climates too, man.
Brutal, yeah. It's just
South
like,
Dakota.
Yeah, to me, it's like, dude, hey, I'm not going to push him into anything that's hard as hell to do. But if he wants to do it, I'm going to help him chase it, right? It's just, but man, yeah, you got to be honest about the journey. But I think it's important to let kiddos know you can do it, but then also reinforce to them that, like, you don't become who you are because you want a game show. Right? I always say that, right? Like, our company's not where we are because I won some, you know, effing game show, right? Like, there's a lot of nights that went into this. There's a lot of like, hey man, no, I can't go out tonight. Can't do this. Can't do that. No, I'm not going to dinner, right? Like, my buddies are all at dinner tonight. It was either we were doing this podcast or I was going to be working on our annual plan. I'm not going to dinner, right? I love you guys. I saw you 2 weeks ago. I'm not going to see you again. You know, it's just, I think it's one of those things that we just,
you're just investing in yourself.
I think it's a good thing to tell kiddos and tell them, man, you can, you know, if you want what no one has, you can't work like everyone else. That's our biggest issue. You know, what I see with our athletes is a lot of them, they want to go D1 or they want, I shouldn't even say D1. They want to play college football or they want to be a pro quarterback, but they do their team workouts. Well, tell me how that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't work out like the rest of your team. So it's an important message. And
that's the basics.
Yeah,
you gotta,
and I think that's a more or less. I think that's why like people sign up, because I think a parent looks at it and we have all this great stuff, the training, the modus, we have all this, but I think at the end of the day they sign up for like their kids long term, being around people that are gonna, you know, instead of pouring the current messaging of today, which is like no matter what it's okay, of like, hey man, like you can do it, you just got to not let yourself off the hook. It's not okay to, you know, not work out for a week straight. You know, take a day off, but you better get your ass back to it.
Yeah, I think we've indirectly answered all of this in the show, but I did want to ask for my buddy.
Yeah,
he had a good coach, or excuse me, he's got a son who's a quarterback, pretty good. But anyways, I told him I'd ask you. Yeah. So what he told me is my kid's putting in work in the gym at practice and has a quarterback coach as well as doing the 7-on-7s. So far, he's shown the potential to be a really good high school quarterback, has the tangibles to play at the next level, possibly D1. He's a freshman, a little over 6'2", 175, runs a sub-5 second 40. Outside of playing well and winning football games, what is the best way to get extra exposure to coaches, camps, combines, etc.?
That's a great question. So recruiting is the craziest thing that I've ever been around, especially today's environment. Here's what I tell him. His kid needs to view emailing and DMing college coaches as just as important as his skill training and speed training. So he needs to be going to these college websites. He needs to be getting the coach's email. He needs to be berating them with emails. You know, first he needs to get on the field. He needs to play varsity football. Then he needs to start emailing out his highlight tape, pounding it, and then they need to go and get to college camps, and they need to get the college camp circuit. What he doesn't need to sign up for is some recruiting guru who says, pay me $4,000 and I'll call college coaches. I went to Fort Lewis College, and I was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 guys that go to the NFL from Fort Lewis College. I can help get a kid looked at, but if I were to call them and say, hey, offer this kid, they'd be like, hey, Tim, I don't know if you can cuss on here, but they'd be like, F you, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to do that. No one can get your kid offered. So what I would tell them is, first step is getting on a varsity football field. But the second step is he needs to pound the emails to college coaches. He needs to not be afraid to pick up the phone and call a college coach and say, hey, coach, this is so-and-so. I'm coming to your camp. I sent you an email with my highlight, blah, 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 blah. And then they need to go out and they need to get at those prospect camps. They didn't have them this summer because of COVID, but they'll be back. And that's the best way. We've had a lot of kids blow up, right? Ty Evans went to Palmer Ridge, offered by Alabama and every other school in America. Alex Padilla, Cherry Creek, offered by University of Georgia and a bunch of other schools. We have a kid at Kearney Catholic, like we already talked about, who's committed to the University of Nebraska. This is the process we've used with all of them. So I would tell you that it's hard to get the kiddos to realize that, man, sitting in front of a computer and emailing a guy is just as valuable as taking another 3-step drop. But in the game of recruiting, it is. So he needs to prioritize that time when he gets home. And then, yeah, that's the best way to get exposure.
Yeah. I mean, I think the rest we covered a lot of about being intentional with your time and putting in the extra work and
I mean, based on what he said, it sounds like he's already doing all the extra work.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, if you feel like you're working hard, double it, right? That's a good general term of, to make sure you're working hard enough. But no, I think if the kiddo's doing all the right stuff and he's working hard, and the other thing I would add is to prioritize, make sure he's a good teammate and a good leader. It's the other thing. If you're a quarterback, man, you have to be a great teammate, right? We talk to our kids about it all the time because the other side of, when a kid starts doing private training and 7-on-7 and doing all this stuff, and he starts having some success, he also starts to, at times, our kids can get this pedestal syndrome where they look at their teammates that aren't doing that as lesser, and that we have to
you have to stop that.
We have to eradicate. We talk to our guys all the time about, everyone's in it for different reasons. There was a lot of guys I had a lot of respect for, teammates that they knew they were never going to play, but they gave it everything at scout team, or they worked their ass off just the same. Did they go do, extra? Did they go throw an extra 150 reps? No, because they were 5'6" trying to play quarterback, right? I get it.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of respect for those guys. There's a lot of guys in college. I tell you that there's a lot of guys that from my career I talk to still that probably people would be like, oh, you probably didn't even know he's on the team. And they're like my really good friends, because I have a ton of respect for anyone who goes about their job the right way. And then there's a lot of guys that, you don't talk to because you look at how much skill set they had and they didn't put in any work, and you feel like they wasted it.
Yeah,
so,
just all natural, no work.
But I would make sure that he keeps that in his forefront, because he is doing a ton of extra work. Make sure that he continues to be, that great teammate and that guy who is a leader and understands that everyone has value. And then, he's doing all the right stuff, but he's going to have to start hammering out those emails.
Okay, good stuff. I appreciate you answering that. So, man, we've been running a while. I've enjoyed it, but I know you get up early. And,
great. Yeah.
What we may have to do is have you be a repeat guest.
I'm ready.
One thing, I think you should look into motivational speaking.
No.
I don't know if you've heard that, but I think you're on the right path, man. And you're not just speaking it. I feel like you're doing it. If you, I'm going to check out your Instagram, make sure you're up at 4:45.
Yeah, you got to check out. I was thinking one of my buddies, because again, I don't want to sound like I'm dumb and old, but you can do the highlight, the story highlight. They're you need to put them all on.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'll get on randomly and I will have missed 3 of the posts. It's like, well, then get on every day. But then I also feel like I'm adding to the social addiction. So it's like, what's a good? But no, I need to do that, because okay, before we go, I did this 30-day accountability deal. And the guy, who was the guy you were talking about that started on it?
Aubrey Marcus.
Okay, is he the guy that has the First Form guy?
Okay, I don't know who that is, but I do know First Form.
Yeah, he started some 75-day hard thing.
Oh, I've seen that.
The challenge. And I'm reading
and you have to restart.
And it's BS, because I'm going to go on record by saying right now that I issued a challenge to everyone in February that was 30 days, basically what he's doing. Okay? It's a joke, right? He didn't rip me off. He doesn't follow me. But, I did this thing with with my followers where I said, listen, for 30 days, you got to get up, and his is way more detailed, but you had to get up, you had to get your entire workout in before 6 a.m. It had to be done before and posted before 6 a.m. And you tag me, and if you do it for 30 days, I'll either hook you up with a $200 gear pack. We have these sweet gear packs we do every quarter. I was like, you can have a gear pack, or you can have an internship. whichever one you want. I don't care.
Nice.
Right? So a bunch of people like tried it and did it, and it was like, and then COVID hit and it was crazy. But I was thinking to myself, like, that to me is the good of social. But it was also so cool because then I started feeling more pressure. Like, I issued this challenge. If I don't get up and someone else does, I'm a loser, right? But I thought it was cool because there was, you know, the group of people that did it, and it was fun, and I got to do that again. But it was one of those things where it was like, you know, I think by talking about the fact that I get up early and then that, oh yeah, I post my watch, it like, I got to cash that check. You can look if I don't do it.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like maybe I do it to like add more pressure on myself to make sure I get my ass up and get on the ruggy alarm clock.
Well, it makes sense if nobody knows, then
Yeah.
besides your wife, who's not going to, you know, it's one person you live with, you're most comfortable with. But if you tell other people, they catch you slipping.
Yeah, especially with my friend group, because like I said, I call them out on stuff. They're quick to figure out. They're like, "Oh, hey man, I heard you say this on this podcast a couple years ago at this time point. You didn't do it, so eat shit." Right? That's what my buddy's trying to say to me.
Well, if you keep calling them out, they're just waiting for you to slip.
They're
just waiting.
There's no doubt.
It's kind of like when you're the champion. Everyone's gunning for you.
It's a good friend group to have, though, man. I think anytime you're around people pushing you, right? Like I always look for that too, and like when I like meet people, like, oh, is this someone that I'm gonna like, you know, be in the friend group? Like, are they, you know? I think it's cool to have people that like are chasing stuff that like push. You know what I mean?
Yeah, driving you to be better.
Yeah, and you can tell, like, you know, like we've already talked about before, like we got to go do dinner with the wives or go to a game. Like you can tell right away, like, hey, is this person genuine? Like, do they like have some like, you know, where they want to go do some substantial stuff, or
I feel like you're
like watch Netflix.
I feel like you're like a guy that you typically read someone in about 2 or 3 minutes, and you're like, this is probably gonna work, or there's probably not gonna be a connection I'm gonna really build on forever.
No doubt. I just like, we already talked about it, right? If you're talking about like who you met or something like that, but if you're talking about like, hey man, here's something I'm doing, like, I just think there's certain things that are super cool, and I think there's certain things that it's like, you know, like don't get me wrong, I watch Netflix. I watch the Social Dilemma documentary. I think documentaries are fascinating, but like if 2 hours goes by and all you did was talk about like a different show, like it weirds me out.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
No, I absolutely agree.
But then there's also like a bunch of people that are gonna start listening to this and they're gonna hate us because they're like, hey, actually we have a TV show club and it's way fucking cooler than what you guys are doing. So
well, and everyone's got different hobbies too. So
no doubt. And I get to, Emily always gets mad at me when I talk about it because I do think there is something super valuable to a little bit of escapism, right? Of like a little bit of, okay, let me decompress.
Yeah.
There is a ton of value, and we all need that. I do it with golf. Golf is my decompression, right? Where I can like go out there and play. Although recently I told my wife that I have every intention of being on the PGA Tour, so it flipped from like decompression and a hobby to like now I get mad if like I'm not getting better.
You're gonna be like Tony Romo.
I don't know if you can see, I got a wedge over there. I like my practice swings after I work out in the morning.
Well, aren't most former quarterbacks like amazing golfers?
You're supposed to be a good golfer. Yeah, when I started, I was horrible, so I don't know what happened.
Remember when Tony Romo like almost qualified for the tour?
Yeah, he did. He's like in programs all the time. He does really well.
That's insane.
My buddy Adam, who works with us, we brought him on. He's actually we're gonna start doing recruiting, but with our members, because a lot of our members were then going to these recruiting gurus and they were just hearing the wrong stuff. So we wanted to include it in what we do. So we brought Adam on. He was a recruiting assistant at Boise State, and he's just kind of been through it, man. He's seen it all. So we brought him on, and we're going to start doing some cool recruiting stuff with him around the idea of like, hey, man, how do you get yourself recruited? Because ain't nobody going to do it for you, right? So more or less kind of that question we have. But, you know, he always jokes. He's like, man, we're gonna go on tour. He's like, I'm a caddy. We're going to win some pro-ams. I'm like, I hope, man. We got to launch some locations first, and we got some priorities first, but senior tour is like 50, right, or 60. Maybe that's what I'll go for.
That's awesome.
Senior tour. So this has been awesome, man. I appreciate you coming up. You drove. I know you had the harder end of the deal.
Yeah. Hey, man. No, I appreciate it because I know your time is valuable, and you know you're a big deal.
In February, you ain't gonna be able to get out of the house as easy.
I know. That's why I'm getting it out now. I told Lindsay, I was like, I don't want to drive, and I was like, you know what? in about 4 months, I'm not going to be able to leave for a while. So
Dude, in March,
I'm
you're going to be
getting down
sitting there like, hey, man, can I drive up there?
Please let me come over.
It gets hard, but it's the most fulfilling, man. And you guys, I mean, talking before, you guys already have it all down. It's going to be a blast. So.
Yeah, we're super excited, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate this. And, yeah, man, I'd love to have you back on. I think maybe down the road,
Can't
see how
wait.
things are going after your launches. If you got any last words, everyone should know about you now, but I'll drop your links in the podcast, and of course when I share it, so people can find you. But you got any 30-second sales pitch?
No.
Or anywhere people can find you?
Yeah, if you have a kiddo that's looking, whether it's a quarterback, we talked about mostly quarterbacks, but we have, we train running backs, receivers, tight ends, O-line, D-line, I don't want to pitch anybody. Come try it out, and we want to earn your business, right? Tom Brady, have you ever watched his thing where he talks about all 160 people drafted in front of him?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know he's still salty. Yeah. 20 years later.
He says this one quote in it where it's like he wants to earn it every single day. Like that's how we feel about your business, right? Like we want to earn it every single day. If we don't, fire us, right? You're not gonna hurt my feelings. You're gonna make us better, probably. Anyone who's left anyone who's, there's reason. Some people leave, for X, Y, Z. But anyone who's left it with real feedback, it made us better, right? And hopefully we can earn it later. But yeah, if they have anyone that's looking to train, we'd love to have them out, and they can try a group. Or if they ever want to just come hang out, talk ball, or if they're looking for a cool internship, come out this summer.
You got to do the 30-day challenge.
You got to do the 30-day challenge. We want winners, man. I want even though it's kind of become like a toxic world, I want competitive people. If you're hyper competitive and you're like, you know what, I want a career change, hit us up.
That's pretty cool. People, I like it. Well, yeah, dude, seriously, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been a good talk. We talked for almost 2 hours, so
that's badass.
Really enjoyed it. Everybody, Tim Jenkins, CEO of Jenkins Elite, and thank you for your time, man.
No, man, thanks for having me.